And I feel like it comes from really, if we lead God-chasing, people-loving, mission field-reaching lives, that what happens in our lives are just absolutely crazy and ought to be. It was funny, on Valentine's Day, Friday, I was on my way to take my nieces out for Valentine's Day. They ended up being my date. So they're like 5 and 8 years old, I think, 5 and 9, somewhere in that ballpark. Does that make me a bad uncle? Because I don't exactly know. No, I don't think so. But took them out, and I was on my way to that, and we have a family text thread that we share with Nick and Emily, Drew, Andrea, and us that we all share. And I just was like, man, who would have guessed Valentine's Day 2020 would look like it does today 1 year ago? And what the reality of our lives were, and it was really, I was just telling Joe about this, like as I was typing the text, I was like, oh my word. Like, oh my word, oh my word. A year ago, who knew any of this would be happening? 1 year ago, we did not know Drew would be married. And he got married, and he was actually headed up north to a family cabin of his now wife's, who was his girlfriend then, but we didn't know the fiance thing and all that was going to happen a year ago. So that's where he was off to. Nick goes to Grand Valley State University, plays on their volleyball team. He was headed to Bloomington, Indiana, to the University of Indiana for a volleyball tournament this weekend that he's playing in and a part of. And like, he didn't know what college he was going to go to a year ago. He hadn't actually played volleyball yet. He was a baseball player all like growing up, and then his senior year doesn't go out for baseball because of some real like important reasons. He felt like that wasn't something he wanted to do and be a part of. So that opened the door for him to do the volleyball thing that led to all this. That like 1 year ago, what is Nick doing in Bloomington, Indiana, playing volleyball? Like it was just amazing. Andrea and Emily are in Kansas City this weekend for the volleyball tournament. And we kind of knew that because Emily is being devoted to volleyball, but we had no idea we'd be in Kansas City and just the team she's on and the way that that's all rolling. And ultimately, I was going on a date with my nieces because of all that, and I pastor a church in Chicago. Who does that? Like, who does that? Who leads that kind of life other than people who, like, love Jesus and chase after him with everything they are and have and, are trying to keep up, which that should just be the norm. That kind of craziness, and that's what Joe and I were sharing, is just how crazy life is, and 1 year is like eternity sometimes in the deal. That was all a setup to talk about what we're celebrating, and another life who knew nothing about what's about to happen other than they've been chasing God would be Don and Susan. Susan and Don, come on up here. We're celebrating you. Many of you received the letter this week in the mail about us as a body sending them to the mission field that God has been calling them towards. Yeah, let's clap for that. This is what it says in Acts 13. In a short summary of who we are as a body, we are an Acts 1:8 body that believes like when the Holy Spirit comes on us, we do bold and courageous things in our faith that God uses wildly, one of which creates churches like this, an Acts 2 church. We've said this all before. Acts 1:8 living leads to Acts 2 churches, but what Acts 2 churches have to do is become Acts 13 churches that send people from what they are to take that message and take the gospel and take the church out into this world to other places. Acts 13 says this: while they were worshiping the Lord and fasting, the Holy Spirit said, set apart Barnabas and Saul, who we'll refer to currently as Susan and Don, set them apart for me for the work which I have called them to. So after they fasted and prayed, they placed hands on them and they sent them off from like the first cell or the first several cells of the church, the lives that we're living, the life that Christ calls us to, a great commandment, great commission life, the lives that we're living that had to go out from there to take that message. And really, I think so many times we do not take the Bible literally enough. Like, we're really supposed to do that stuff as the church. That's how it's supposed to happen. And yes, it requires great faith of a few, but it ought to involve the great faith of many that send them, not sad because they're leaving us, but celebrating because we're sending them to take the message outward onward, upward, downward, in a spiral-like kind of Tasmanian devil thing that happens when you're following God. So we're really right now just in like the discovery stage of this. You know, we as a body sent them for an internship and residency, a part of Susan's calling and exploring her call of what people, what place, what picture is God putting on her heart for the ministry that he's calling her to. And as a result of that time in Florida, God just really spoke to them and grabbed a hold of their heart, soul, and mind and has called them to drop everything and go there. Is that amazing or what? Yeah. And I've been saying the whole time what, in some sense, none of us should be surprised by that. There is a connection with John and Christia and how they went down there and they went and visited there, but hit these other churches and the people and all this. And if you know Don and Susan's heart and you know the people and again, a lot of the brokenness and the opportunity of the lives in this area that they were down exploring, it makes so much sense. But what I kept saying, but the odds of it happening are ridiculous. Of course that would be something God would do, but like, who really does that? Like, who really does what God calls us to do with our lives when it costs us everything being dropped? Yeah. So Don and Susan are really in the preparing to go. They've declared they're called. They're dropping everything to go. But we as a body have time with them to help them prepare, to come around them in prayer, form tighter relationships with them that will send them and truly keep them connected to us as a body. And the main thing we can be doing for them in this season is to be praying. So I've asked Susan to share 3 ways that we can specifically be praying for them as they get ready for the ridiculous, I'll call it, which is God's calling.
Well, before I ask you, are we not on? Hello?
Oops. There it is.
No, is it not on? I turned it off. I got to find it.
Sin. Sin. If you're new, her name is Cynthia. We call her Sin. She's not sin. She's not living in sin. She sometimes does sin, like we all do.
Am I on now? Yes.
Okay.
Well, before I ask for you all to pray for 3 things, I would like to share a short story. We went to visit 2 other churches in the general vicinity. One was about an hour away. One was about an hour and a half to 2 hours away. And during the second church that we went to, it was a husband and wife co-pastoring team. We had talked in one room. We went into the sanctuary. She was going to pray over us. While she was getting ready, I opened a Bible. There was a whole stack of Bibles sitting there. So I opened one, and this is what I read. It's Proverbs 16:9. In their hearts, human plans their own course, but the Lord establishes their steps. It sort of meant something to me at the time, but as we were hearing from God and discerning his voice, he's planning our steps.
Yep.
And we don't know all the steps that we are going to be asked to take on this journey. So first I would ask you, please keep my family and our families in your prayers as we all adjust to all the changes ahead, our move. I have 2 sons, 2 daughters-in-law, and 7 grandchildren I will be leaving behind here. Thank you for the internet. Thank you for FaceTime and writing letters the old-fashioned way, texting, things like that. But in the meantime, it's an adjustment for all of us. The second thing I would ask is that you pray that we have a place to live and that we have discernment what to do with our place here, rent it, sell it, whatever. And the last thing I would like is for all of you to pray for both of our church families. Church family here at Alive and at Oak Ridge and in the community in which we will be serving. I've been through a transition on both sides now. And as exciting as it is, there is some sadness also. This has been my church family for 15 years and Don's for about 20 or 25. So please keep us in your prayers, but also pray for our family here, church family. We're all going through a transition.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is not the send-off service where they're departing. That we've kind of mapped out an initial plan of February, Susan wrapping up her role here as the office administrator, office secretary, so that March, April, and May can be a 3-month window of preparing to go. And then even if it takes my foot, it'll be the last day of May, and it's just like, go on. Go on. She has to be out by June 1. No, not at all, but is continuing to prepare with her classes. And really what's the catalyst of this all is her reaching the mark of being a licensed pastor, which means you're ready. You can go and you can do this, or you cannot. You can sit back and sit tight and play it safe and be normal and all those things, or you keep chasing God. And it's such an inspiring and encouraging story. So thankful for the amazing faith of Don and Susan and Mary, a part of the journey. Right, Mary? Yeah. So let's give it up for them as we dismiss the kids and the ushers come forward and we take the offering at this time.